Welcome, welcome everyone. Dr. Stephen Hobbs here from the International Mentoring Community. I am the facilitator of the community conversation about mentoring that we're having today, which is May the 20th, 2020. And we're looking forward to a conversation, certainly starting with a topic like, what's the shared ethic of trustworthiness in the mentoring arrangement? So with that, I'll just add a little bit about myself. I am the co-founder of the International Mentoring Community and serve in the capacity as Director of Certification.
My name is Doug Lawrence, and I'm the co-founder of the International Mentoring Community. I also have the pleasure of serving as the Director of Education today, and we'll see where that evolves to in time. I have my own mentoring practice. I also have the Certificate of Achievement Mentoring and the Certificate of Competence Mentor from the International Mentoring Community. And I'm currently working on my certification of Certificate of Competence Journey Mentor.
Thank you. Rohit?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rohit. I'm a permanent resident holder in Canada, and I'm also a NCA candidate in Canada about pursuing my law evaluation here. And I had 8 years experience from social community services in India.
Our first one is all about this concept of the shared ethic of trustworthiness in the mentoring arrangement. And I'm bringing it up because I think it is one of the core ethics. And while we may not talk about it in particular as one of the action outcomes in the certification process, because we include it with 6 other ethics, I still think it's worth pulling this one out and going, all right, let's look at this from a number of different angles and see what unfolds for us. And that's where we're going with our conversation today. So with that, I'm going to facilitate this in a way to just encourage the conversation, but it might take a little bit of, a few minutes to get to the conversation part, because what I want to do is just ask you first, what other words do you associate with trust?
For me, the first one that comes to mind is relationships.
Okay. So just keep adding them.
Yeah. And for my first word come in my mind is loyal.
Loyal. Okay. So the notion of loyalty. All right. Yeah. Okay. I'll add promise keeping. Another one is agreements. It fits into the world of agreements.
And I think we could probably add journey would be another one that could be added.
And I would link the word continuance with that one. Anything else we want to add at this point? Well, then let me add one more. Like, I've had the advantage of being able to think about this because I know where I'm going to facilitate it. But it's this word intentionality, the intentionality. Okay. So I'll bring out a little bit more about that here as we start to have a conversation about this topic. So if I was to say to you, you've just entered a room and someone asked you, what does trustworthy mean? In other words, what's your definition of trust and trustworthiness? What would you answer at this point in time? And I'm not asking for it to be perfect by any means, but you're just there, you're giving your initial response. So Rohit, what would you say is your definition or explanation of trustworthiness?
I would probably say it's be for a good faith, and for trustworthiness, I can say someone who's not having the malified intention, but they're doing something is most to be connecting the mentees within good faith. And if the mentors kind of strict with the mentees, or kind of ignoring the mentees' views, but it should be on a good faith, not to impact that the mentees will develop the negative statement, but it should be in a good faith that it will help to be built up in a relation, uh, in a good relations.
Okay. Doug?
So how I look at that is trust is, we'll call it the higher level word. And so before you can actually have trustworthiness, you need to have trust. And so, and trust for me is having faith in, faith would be an element of trust. There, as Rohit had mentioned, was the loyal or loyalty, whichever word you want to use for that. That would be part of that as well. Relationships would be part of trust as well. And then when I look at trustworthiness, that's being able to take trust and actually apply it or put it into practice in a relationship. So in order for that to happen, both people would need to be, they would need to understand trust, but they would also need to be trustworthy in order to be able to build that from a relationship perspective, to be able to build that relationship.
Okay. So for me, this notion of trust and trustworthiness, and I appreciate what you just shared, Doug, in terms of the sort of layering connection. I hadn't sort of wrapped my head around it from that perspective. So thank you for that. For me, this notion of trust is really about a self-awareness, which links to a little bit what you're saying, the self-awareness, self-concept that I will offer my promise keeping, I will make my commitment, so that you can trust that when I show up to do what I'm going to do, I have the competence, I can do it over a continuance, like over a certain amount of time. It's sort of like I'm going to offer you a contract, an agreement, and this notion of intentionality that I mentioned earlier is that the intention is favorable to both you and I. That's why we're going into this this trust and trustworthiness. And it really comes back to that promise keeping aspect. That's where I'm coming from at this point. And that you can say, yeah, I can trust you to do what you're going to do. And seems like you're aiming for that and you're working towards it. So that's sort of what I would be helping to explain trust and trustworthiness. Okay. Anything you would like to add before I take us into the next section?
No.
Okay. Rohit, anything?
Yeah, I can say the trust for a long term is kind of that we development that can be good for well-being. So
Develop for
we, in the
well-being.
meantime, we intentfully, in a good faith, we encourage the mentees or people who we support for their confidence, kind of developing so that they could be good for well-being for their themselves or with the people surround them.
Okay. Well, that'll link to a second part to where I'm going to go right now is the mentoring arrangement is about the agreement that the mentor and mentee get into to say, we are going to have a relationship. It's going to be structured in this way, and we're going to proceed with it. So we're opening it up. We know how we might close it when we need to close it. So there's an agreement, a basis to go from. So this trustworthiness, as the title of this conversation's about, linked to mentoring arrangement. I just wanted to give the mentoring arrangement sort of platform to stand on, which means then that there is a trust concept from the mentor's perspective. There's a trust concept from the mentee's perspective. There's a trust concept from the workplace of the mentoring arrangement. And it could be, I'm using workplace in the widest sense. It could be, as Rohi was mentioning, the youth element of it, all right? So it could be from a youth center perspective. It could be from a community perspective, workplace perspective. So those are three. I believe there's a fourth, which is the trustworthiness of the ripple effect of this mentor-mentee, mentor relationship arrangement, that what happens actually will benefit the community at large. And if you want to, you could go, okay, well, there's actually a fifth perspective, which is society. Like it ripples right out into a bigger society. I'd like to take a look at the notion of trustworthiness from the perspective of the mentee right now. How does trust and mentee in the mentoring arrangement, how is that maybe set up? How is that confirmed? What are your thoughts, right? Because again, this is where I'd like to open up the conversation more, but doing it from the mentee's perspective. So who'd like to start?
So what I find for the mentee to have that sense of trust or trustworthiness in relation to their interaction and relationship, excuse me, with the mentor, is that it first starts with the mentor. It doesn't. So the mentor has to be able to develop that sense or that feeling, or we'll leave it at sense and feeling of a degree or level of trust. And so typically what I tell people is that if I'm going to be building that so that the mentee feels comfortable enough to be able to continue on with their journey with me as their mentor, is that I may very well have to share something very personal in order to be able to build that trust. And by doing so, I'm actually demonstrating my trustworthiness as well. And so when we can get to that place where both of us are able to share something personal that helps us build the trust, we're both demonstrating the trustworthiness from a shared ethics perspective.
So in a sense, if I'm using my two hands and I've got the mentee and the mentor, the mentee is looking at the mentor and going, okay, there's an element of trust, and it might be difficult to establish it or take a bit of time. At the same time, if you do something that from a mentor's perspective that breaks that, bang, it could be gone as a mentee. You're sharing the same story from the mentor's perspective, right? Is if the mentor experiences the mentee and it explodes, then the arrangement goes away, kind of idea. But just before I ask Rohit, can you just explain a little bit more? If you're in the mentee's shoes, how would you know that you are in a trusting relationship with the mentor? How would you know that as a mentee?
Well, I can say first I have to make the mentees feel comfortable with me, and and the mentee is strong enough that what they want to be say are able to be say in whatever the word the mentees will be used, but what they want to convey is reachable to the mentors. Like some of them, I had some youth who's basically have want to say something, but the the rigidness of the words, they're not able to be speak out. But it's the job of the mentors to be to ensure that the mentees should be comfortable, and at every time mentors should to be pushed to the mentees, yes, you can do that, I have a faith on you, yes, it's you want to do that, I have faith, just do it. Whatever the way the mentees will do it, mentors should have to be push them. Okay, I am on your behind, don't worry, I can look up you. So in this way the mentees will feel safe, secure, comfortable, and it's more like mentors need to be make the surrounding like they are kind of family atmosphere. So the mentor mentees need at that time. So it's not like that they are kind of brother, sister, family members, but it's kind of surrounding that the mentees feel they're comfortable. Maybe it kind of friend, maybe it kind of teacher, maybe it kind of sibling. So mentors has to be sometimes decide what kind of role they have to play with the mentees.
So if I'm hearing and sort of pulling from what you're saying, I'm hearing a very strong use of the word comfortable. The
Right.
mentee has to feel comfortable, which leads to the story of trust
Right.
with the mentor. Would that be fair?
Right. That's
Okay.
correct.
And then there was a second one you brought in there, which is the notion that the mentee will feel the trust with the acceptance and agreement that the role that the mentor is coming from and supporting them is understood.
Right. That's correct.
Okay, great. Doug, do you have anything? I'm standing in the mentee's shoes, looking at the mentor and trust.
For me, from my perspective, it's how the mentee would know that we're in a place of trust, or how I would, as the mentor, know that we're in a place of trust. Is it's tied back to how we open up and start to share those experiences that we've had, so the lived experiences, and we feel comfortable in being able to do that. And if we're probing a little bit more to sort of get to what is the root cause that is causing the behavior that either one of us are displaying, it's being able to feel comfortable enough that we can go on that journey together and explore that.
Okay, great. So again, you use the word comfort.
Yeah.
And I think you're also hinting at that you feel as though, from a mentee's point of view, the person's got their act together. Am I paraphrasing that okay? Or is there another way you want to put that?
No, I think that's reasonable to be able to say that, the perception is that we have our act together, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. And I bring that up is because I'm going back to this notion of starting it up and the mentee is entering into the arrangement. Now, if the mentee has asked the mentor, that's great there, because you've already got, as a mentee, you get a sense of the mentor. But if I'm a mentee and I'm assigned a mentor, it might be a little bit different to be able to get to be able to have that kind of conversation. So for me as a mentee, and having been a mentee in my past life, I've been assigned when I was working. One of the things that I remembered was, what was that person like when I first met them? Did they smile? Right? Or did it look like oh boy, I think this guy is, and there was a woman who did me as work with me as well. She smiled a lot more than the guy did. So that's why I'm making this comparison. All right. But also it was the words that first came out. Okay. Now with the guy, he actually broke at the initial connection through humor and telling a joke. And I went, whew, okay, I think I can work. I can start to move into this. The woman mentor, what she did is she just was a calm presence and just basically said, hey, where are we going? You're going to have to help me out here. We've been assigned, so let's take a look at what this might mean. So it was just her, a little bit of a laid back, okay, if we want to use comfortable, the laid back kind of feel to it, right? So when you guys go back and remember the time where you were a mentee, okay, what was the mentor like to you? Can you remember a situation, share a little story, like a minute or so here, like I did? Let's just get in touch with your mentee experience of the mentor as we're entering to build this trust?
I would say that one of the mentors that I had, and it was more specific to filling a need that I needed. So I needed somebody that, and this was in the early stages. So I needed somebody who had a lot of technology background because we were at that time point looking at doing that. I think it was knowledge was what drew me to him, and also the ability to communicate effectively were a couple things that sort of stood out and helped us be able to build that trust and the trustworthiness that comes with that.
So your intention entering into that connection with that mentor, you already knew that that mentor had the expertise that you were really looking for. So in a sense, that comfort element, I think I can trust this person because I sought them out, that's an important element of establishing trust. And if that person continues to work it, then we can do what we need to do together. Would that be fair?
Yep, that's fair. And just to add to that is I had other mentors that were part of that, we'll call it an advisory body, that did match up, definitely had the knowledge, but that's where it ended. And so yeah, exactly. My trust in, there were hidden agendas, and I don't have time for this. And so we went our separate ways.
Okay. Rowie, do you have a story of
Yeah.
you being a mentee with your mentor? Yeah.
Right. So I had to one in my work time there. So like I do have some kind of knowledge to do some kind of activity, and my mentor uh, always watch me like, okay, so my mentor ensure me that yes, this is the task, that guy can do it, and I have a faith on him. So, and that faith encouraged me, okay, so if I make a mistake, so someone is there who can look up me and rectify it. So, and that make me more comfortable, and it's kind of the hesitations, kind of the sense of failure is automatically remove my head, and I feel more focused on my activity, and I did it well. And for mentors make me go extra mile with me. Okay, I did my job, okay, but mentors focus me that a mentee should go extra mile.
Okay.
Yeah.
So really it was because you asked this person, I'm thinking, to help you in your pursuit of your own excellence and
Right.
this activity you're talking
Right.
about. It's also the way that they spoke to you and offered insights. That was your experience of them as a mentee, and that was very helpful. So again, it's that connection
Right.
that's being established there. Okay. Well, then let's go and put ourselves in the mentor shoes. All right. A mentee is coming in. How does the mentor say, okay, how do I build the trust with the mentee? Because again, I've got to be able to say, is this person going to keep their promises, do what they're supposed to do as the mentor? So looking at the mentee now, how does the mentor establish the trust component of this mentoring arrangement? Thoughts from that perspective?
I think it comes back to what we talked about earlier, and that's in order to build that trust as the mentor, you're going to have to share something that's rather personal in order to be able to do that. The other aspect is when it comes to the relationship itself, I like to typically let the mentee kind of steer where we're going to go very early on, and then just kind of be there to act as the guide to be able to help them to navigate where we need to go and be able to deal with things. And it's also, once again, it's also a great place for the lived experience, being able to share your lived experience in a relatable manner or fashion that they can sort of see themselves in that particular situation. And that helps build that level of trust or trustworthiness as well, because, well, gosh, he walked in much the same shoes as what I'm trying to do, and he survived, and he's guiding me, so therefore I'm going to put some level of trust in what he says and how he behaves as a mentor.
Okay. So the mentor is looking at the mentee, and maybe one of the ways in terms of that connection is the kind of questions the mentee is asking of my lived experience.
Yeah.
Because if they're questions that go, okay, all right, let's get a little deep. What's going on here? Again, if it's just superficial, well, we could close this down pretty quickly. So to build a trust, I have to look at the kind of questions that are being asked, which may mean as a fine tuning as a mentor. Again, jump in here, okay? Is I may have to help the mentee learn how to ask great questions to build the trust to get it to work. Agree?
Oh, and all you have to do is, we take a look at our definition of effective mentoring, and it's about that two-way trusted relationship. And I think, what you've just sketched out is that in a nutshell. And that needs to be in place in order for both the mentee and the mentor to develop trust, to understand what it is, and to be trustworthy in that relationship.
Yeah.
As soon as that disconnect takes place, we're done.
Okay. Rohit, from a mentor to a mentee perspective, you're standing in the mentor's shoes. Anything you want to add to the story here?
Yeah, so the effective mentoring needs the trustworthiness. That's true, and the trust build up. It takes time, right? So I can say, in a mentor perspective, this exact word is empathy, and the mentor should to be understand the experience of mentees and to appreciate the view of the world from mentees' perspective, and then the mentors can encourage the mentees' imaginations or creativity. And if the mentors empathy with the mentee, then they will build up the trust, and they will be questioning them, and they will provide their answers or feedback. So mentors should be empathy with the mentees, and they appreciate what kind of experience mentees go on that time. Or it should not be deaf with the ear, but appreciate it what mentees is saying. So I can say trust build up with the empathy.
Okay. So it's really about what are the capabilities that mentee is bringing. So the mentor's looking at, okay, well, who are you? What have you got? The questions you're asking. But what you're also sharing is the mentor's appreciation
Right,
of who the mentee is.
right, right.
Because when you
That's right.
show that appreciation, then the mentee's going to, oh, okay, I see where this can start to work. And because they're appreciating who I am, and the mentor's going, I'm getting the feed forward from this connection that allows me to go, I think we can start to dance here, like the dance of mentoring. Okay. And
Correct.
I share that from a point that lead into as we look at the mentoring arrangement as a whole, like we're looking at it sort of from an eagle view at this point. The one thing that I would add from the mentor's perspective, standing in the mentor's shoes, is my feeling, my gut response to the concept of the depth of what we're going to get into and the duration. I think this is going to go for a little bit, or this is going to go for a short time, which is great. But I've got a little bit of a gut feeling allows me to go, okay, I can lean into that trust because it's going to be a little bit longer. Or I'm going to lean into the trust because, no, it's only going to take about a month to do this. So I'm going to have to figure out how to get to that trustworthiness, that agreement, that intentionality a little quicker if it's shorter, and then build it up over time as we move forward. Any thoughts about depth and duration?
For me, with some of the work that I've done, trust is something, or a level or degree of trust is something that you must be able to develop in a compressed period of time. Largely because you've been brought in by an organization to spend some time with somebody, and the perfect example is the one service that we offer, which is mentoring versus termination. Is you've got a predetermined period of time to change behavior, and in order to change the behavior, you have to be able to develop trust, and therefore it needs to be able to be developed in ideally the first or the second session that you spend with that person.
So to that point of it's a short duration, you know it is, you've got to establish it really quickly. But sometimes when you're into a long duration and you can see it happening, then you can develop the strengthening and the focusing of that trustworthiness as well, right? So you give a really great example of the short one. I think we've all had the experience of the long version and how the trust builds and builds and grows and builds and grows, right? I've only had one time where my mentor blew it up. We were working together and they blew it up and it was gone, like just gone. And we had to terminate because of that. But I've been very fortunate in my duration of trust to have it happen quite a bit. Yeah. All right. Any comments you would want to add, Rohit, about this notion of depth and duration, short-term, long-term, or anything?
Oh yeah, so it's in these situations like I have seen there is a conflict arising between mentors and mentees, and the both in that level of conflict that the mentors say I will not work with the mentees, and mentees say I will not work with this mentor, and that kind of impact on both of them for their relation, both the mental health or in the surrounding. So how we can deal these situations, like just say okay, we just not work with them together, but the conflict is not resolved, but mentors say okay, I give you one lesson, do it, or I will terminate it. So how we deal this situation? This is my notion. I am still looking the favorable transfer, how I can make it practice.
Okay. I think what you're leaning into is if it's done, it's done.
Yeah, 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 right, right.
Right? If the trust is broken, it's done. Or if you want to take a look at it, then you really got to come with an open heart to be able to dialogue about how to getting that trust back, or it is a reason to close down. Right. So it's a very much a hinge point. Trust and is its presence there or not is very much a hinge point to a mentoring arrangement. All right. I think what I'd like to do now is if we went up to the sort of the eagle view and we're looking at this mentoring arrangement and we can talk about this. Okay, I see the two people. So I might be the manager leader of the two people that's in the workplace, and how are they doing? Or I could look at it from an organizational point of view going, okay, looks like we got a series of mentoring arrangements going on. How are we doing? All right. And is it benefiting the organization? Or we could go right out and say from a community level, wow, these guys have got a really great mentoring in the workplace program. And we can see how it's benefiting because people are coming out into the community, into charitable activities, and bringing their understanding of mentoring and that out into the community. right, and to society. So I'm going to leave it open for you, but it's just looking at it from above. What do you notice about trust and mentoring and the mentoring arrangement? Anything you would want to add to that other than, I think we would all agree it's favorable, right? But what else would you want to add to that story?
I think it comes back to a lot of the conversation we've had so far, is that being able to build that trust and the trustworthiness when, if I'm at that 35,000 or that eagle height looking down, I'm hoping that what I see are two people that are in an open and uh, trusting relationship where they're exchanging they're having a conversation both back and forth where they're trying to determine what the root cause is, and then from there together mapping out what is a potential outcome that we can, by us working together, what potential outcome could we realize as a result of that relationship. I also see, looking down as well, I see times where we as mentors may not have done the best job, and we have a mentee who is kind of wandering aimlessly looking for that guidance that they need, and they're not getting it from that mentor.
Well, I use this sort of three layers, and I'll give an example then, Rohit, please share from your perspective, is that mentoring sometimes can be from a turbulent perspective. Something's going on and you're tapping into the lived experience. And others at times, no, from a career point of view, or I'm a new hire, I'd like to get some insight from your lived experience. But sometimes we're into a turbulence. And to be able to have the mentoring available to deal with the turbulence. And I'm going to use a great example. If we take a look at what's happening in the world today, and this video was shot, something called COVID-19 is working its way through not only society, communities, workplaces, mentoring arrangements between two people in whatever the workplace is. That's a fairly strong turbulence. So when I look at that as someone who's interested in mentoring, I celebrate all of the mentoring arrangements in those different elements and say, this is great. The more that we can help each other using mentoring to support what's taking place in this world, then that's great. Because there's a lot of people who may not be going back to the same workplace. How do they get mentored? Okay, I'm going into a new workplace, or I'm going to make a career shift. How can I get some mentoring to support me? Because it may not be just coaching that you need. I really need some mentoring to be able to make that move. Okay. And how do we set up mentoring to deal with, okay, the workplace is going to look very different. The community is going to look very different. Society is going to look very different. How do we encourage this mentoring to be able to deal with it? And I want to celebrate that. So indirectly asking you to go to the ego view is my own way of saying, let's celebrate mentoring. Okay. I just wanted to bring that out. So the story that is there anything you would want to share, Rohit? And then Doug, if that spurred something in you, then please
Yeah,
add.
uh, I say in a few words, the lived experience of the mentors is really matters. From what kind of experiences mentors come out, how he's grown up, how he's educated, how he's lived, how he's worked hard. So all these factors define the mentor's personality, behavior, and the way the mentors will do the mentoring mentees.
Okay.
You can say that. Yeah,
And then
surrounding, yeah,
the different levels that go
different.
with that. Yes.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So, and that all these experiences and the lessons the mentor had in their life will define him how the mentors kind of adjust his ego problem, or kind of uh, absorb with this negativity surrounding COVID, layoff, society, lockdown, and how is effectively he can do it with mentees. So all these factors define the mentoring image. So yeah.
If I'm hearing, it's like the mentee, because of their situation and the trusted relationship, the shared alliance that's established here,
Right.
the mentee is actually going to help the mentor to become better as a mentor and as a person of self-awareness because
Exactly.
of the mentoring arrangement. Is that
Yeah. Right. Right.
okay?
That's correct.
A great perspective in terms of
Yeah.
connecting it. Yeah. Doug?
No, I don't have anything to add to that.
Okay. Well, I think that what we were doing here was just looking at the different perspectives of this notion of the mentoring arrangement, the mentee mentor, and this notion of the ethic of trustworthiness. Now, we talked a little bit about from a workplace point of view and from a community point of view and a society point of view, place of practice. What's something you would want to share that connects, either for the mentor, for the mentee, the mentoring arrangement around this notion of trust? Anything you'd like to share as a sort of a quick summary statement?
I think that the biggest thing for all of us, whether you're in the practice of mentoring, is that one of the cornerstones to a successful mentoring arrangement relationship is trust. Without it, you basically have nothing. And I've seen countless times where the mentor has not been able to develop trust, and I've watched relationships or arrangements crumble and fall apart. So the takeaway from this is we as mentors need to be able to understand, number one, what trust and what trustworthiness is, but also what it is not. It isn't, it is a shared ethic, and so we need to embrace that. And we need to be able to make sure that our mentoring toolkit has the tools that are going to help us to be able to very quickly develop some level of trustworthiness in the relationship, and then nurture it and help it grow for as much time as you have together.
Okay, thank you. Rohit?
Yeah, I would say the most important it would be for the agreement in the common agreement between the mentor and the mentee, and it should not be broken up, and so that what the mentees is need from the mentor, so it should be enough in a way. It should be designed. It should be kind of like step by step fabricated, and it should not be broken. If it is broken, then it should not be work out. So yeah, trust, I can say, yeah, it is built according to time, but what the mentee need, it should be recognized from mentor's perspective. I can say it is agreement. It is agreement.
Yeah, thank you. If I was to add something, it's the realization that trust comes from within. So I have to trust myself that I will commit, do my promise keeping in this relationship I have with this other person, and that I ask that they have that same within to without, so that when we meet in something like a mentoring arrangement, which is what we're talking about, it's actually a way to come to know more about myself, as I would hope you as the mentee would know, because eventually, if from a depth and duration perspective, and this continues on over a long period of time, not to say you can't get it in a short one as well, but if it's going to develop over time, you are almost going to merge. So it's not like there's a mentor mentee, it's a collaborative conversation, and both of you are benefiting. In our definition, we use the term strategic or collaborative alliance kind of idea. So For me, trust and self-awareness, it really helps me to come to understand myself. And that's why I so enjoy mentoring. Thank you for listening in, and let's see what conversations we can generate in the comments section wherever you see this. And we look forward to sharing more as time goes by. So thank you for that, everyone. Thanks for watching the video. We have an ask of you. Make sure you click the subscribe button and click the bell beside subscribe so you can receive more notifications of the videos that we're loading up. And like the video, and especially if you could comment your insights. We would enjoy learning from you. Take care.